In the 19th century, European explorers pushing through the dense jungle of northwestern Cambodia stumbled upon a sprawling stone temple complex. Upon seeing it, several flatly refused to believe the ancestors of the local population could have built it. To European minds of the era, the existence of such an enormous structure in Southeast Asia seemed impossible. They proposed wildly inaccurate alternative histories, suggesting the massive stonework was actually the product of Romans, or perhaps Alexander the Great, or some other vanished civilization from far away. The truth was entirely local. The Khmer people of medieval Cambodia broke ground on Angkor Wat around the year 1122 AD, carving and placing the massive stones over roughly 3 decades of continuous labor. The final structure is immense. The primary temple grounds cover 400 acres, entirely wrapped inside a perfectly rectangular moat nearly 5 kilometers long. To put that into perspective, the builders of Angkor Wat quarried and shaped more stone than it took to construct the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yet Angkor Wat was never an isolated monument in the wilderness. It was the religious center of a massive, forgotten urban landscape that stretched far beyond the temple walls. Stepping back from the central temple reveals ruins sprawling across roughly 400 square kilometers. At its height in the 12th and 13th centuries, this was the capital of the Khmer Empire. Up to 1 million people lived here, making it the largest pre-industrial city on the planet. Sustaining 1 million people in Southeast Asia required mastering a violently unpredictable climate. For half the year, the region bakes in near drought conditions. Then the monsoons arrive, dropping extreme torrential rainfall that floods the plains. The Khmer solved this with a hydraulic system of staggering proportions. They constructed enormous artificial reservoirs, known as barais. The largest, the West Barai, is an artificial lake 8 kilometers long and over 2 kilometers wide, and as you can see, it still holds water today. From these massive holding tanks, a sprawling network of intricate canals distributed water out into the surrounding rice paddies. By controlling the flow of water through the dry seasons, the city could guarantee multiple massive rice harvests every single year. The survival, growth, and supreme regional power of this megacity were entirely dependent on the precise, continuous functioning of that massive hydraulic machine. The spiritual architecture of the city mirrored this obsession with the physical environment. Angkor Wat itself was dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu and faced west, the direction of death, functioning as a funerary monument that doubled as a 3-dimensional model of the Hindu cosmos. The 5 central towers were built to represent the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the mythological home of the gods. The massive concentric walls and the moat enclosing the complex served as the cosmic oceans surrounding the divine mountain. The devotion of the artisans is captured in the stone itself. Lined end to end, the complex features over half a mile of continuous bas reliefs, carving thousands of figures from Hindu mythology into the walls with exhaustive detail. By the late 12th century, under the rule of King Jayavarman VII, the empire converted to Buddhism. The city expanded again with the construction of a new temple complex known as Angkor Thom. At the center of this new complex sits the Bayon. Its stone towers eschew traditional spires, instead rising into enormous, deeply carved faces, sporting serene, enigmatic smiles that gaze out across the jungle canopy. Through intense physical labor, the Khmer mapped their vision of divine, cosmic order directly onto the unpredictable alluvial plains of Cambodia. Yet, over the 14th and 15th centuries, the capital was gradually abandoned. The historical record shows no evidence of a sudden, catastrophic military conquest that would empty a city of 1 million people. The explanation remained buried until 2012. Archaeologists deployed LiDAR technology, scanning the region with aircraft-mounted lasers. This visualization shows exactly what that data revealed by mathematically stripping away the dense jungle canopy to expose the hidden ground below. The scans showed that the city was vastly larger than anyone had mapped. The urban network of homes, roads, and waterways actually stretched across 3,000 square kilometers. But the high-resolution maps also captured the city's demise. The intricate grid of canals and reservoirs shows clear signs of being progressively overwhelmed. Extreme monsoon events blew out canal walls, while punishing droughts choked vital waterways with thick layers of silt. When the climate grew too volatile to control, the massive agricultural machine seized up. The exact water infrastructure that allowed the city to thrive ultimately broke under the strain of extreme weather. Without a functioning water network, the rice paddies dried up. 1 million people could no longer feed themselves. Families dispersed, the urban sprawl emptied out, and only small, isolated monastic communities remained in the stone temples. The jumble reclaimed the wooden houses and the broken canals within a few generations. When Portuguese missionaries arrived in the 16th century and asked who had built the massive stone structures, the locals had forgotten the Khmer Empire. They claimed the temples were the work of angels or left behind by a race of giants. Today, the true history has been recovered. Angkor Wat is the defining symbol of Cambodian national identity, proudly displayed on the country's flag, and remains the subject of intense, ongoing archaeological study. But at the outer edges of the complex, you can still see the aftermath of the collapse. Strangler figs slowly swallow the ancient architecture, their pale roots tightly binding the intricate stone carvings. It is a quiet, permanent reminder that no matter how complex the engineering or how vast the civilization, every city ultimately returns to the earth it rose from. Next time, we travel to Scotland to examine the Overton Bridge. Over the past 50 years, hundreds of dogs have inexplicably leaped to their deaths from this exact structure, almost always from the same spot, and almost always on clear days. The investigations are ongoing, and the answers remain entirely unresolved.